Welcome back. Today we're going to discuss telecommunications, most specifically radio and the internet. For those of you under 40, you probably don't remember radio back in the day. Today we have talk radio, we have religious radio, we have everything under the sun. Prior to 1988, that was not the case. Back in 1949, the FCC determined because radio stations licensed or banned their frequency to broadcast, they decided, well, there's so few radio stations and so little information dispersed around the country that they had to protect everybody's interest in it. Well, I can remember as a kid that we could hear maybe 2, 3 possible radio stations at daytime. Of course, when the sun went down and WLS in Chicago and WABC in New York and WBZ in Boston started booming out at 100,000 watts, you could hear everything pretty clear. But they, as well as almost every other radio station in the country, it was 24 hours of top 40 music. Once in a while you get classical, and when NPR came along and they had the FM signal, a lot of that was classical. But in 1988, they decided, well, maybe it was called the Fairness Doctrine, I forgot to say that, it was called the Fairness Doctrine. Basically what it did was that if you broadcast an ideology, for instance, say you were a Democrat and you want to talk about Democrat things, well, if the station would broadcast your program, then they would have to allow the GOP an equal time. It was called fairness. And because there were so few radio stations, and back in '49, television hadn't come along yet, and even in the 50s and 60s, television was still, in any particular area in the country, you might get 1 or 2 until cable came along. So basically, radio was it. So if you broadcast, for instance, now we have conservative talk all over the radio. If the Fairness Doctrine was in place, you wouldn't hear it. Very simply because every hour of conservative talk you would play, you'd have to have an hour of liberal talk. That's not going to happen. The conservative talk shows in the country are well sponsored. They make money because there's a sufficient amount of the public listens to them. When the liberal segment of the population tried to set up a radio network a couple times, they went bankrupt almost immediately because no one listened to them. So the point is, they want to bring the Fairness Doctrine back. There's even some more complications. Back in the day, there were very few radio stations owned by churches and other religions, I mean Christianity especially. And there are hundreds of Christian radio stations now. Are they going to have to, if they have an hour of Christian broadcasting, they're going to have to put an hour of Satan broadcasting on, or Muslim broadcasting, or some other viewpoint? That is yet to be determined, but that's the situation we're facing now. Well, why do they want to bring the Fairness Doctrine back? Because it's anything but fair. And it also is control. Now let's switch over to the internet. The internet from the very beginning, well, not the very beginning, because first few years you couldn't do anything you wanted on the internet. I know, I got thrown off 3 or 4 times. The company that when they started having URLs and names like such and such at Comcast.net, that type of thing, they set up a non-profit private corporation called ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. They've operated very well. They take care of everything worldwide. Many countries aren't as free as we are with the internet. China, Russia, Greece, a lot of countries try to stop or control the information that's on the internet. Well, now there's 2 things on the internet situation you need to know. One the administration, the current administration, wants to transfer ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, to the UN or to some other group of people. They said we shouldn't be running it all. Well, you're not going to be guaranteed if they do that it's going to be handled fairly. Now, just like the Fairness Doctrine of radio, is the concept of net neutrality. Sounds good on paper, but there are a lot of consequences to net neutrality. One, if it's passed, the broadcasters, the servers like Comcast and Time Warner and these people that handle the content would be able to charge you based on the bandwidth you use. That's one thing. But the other thing is, with net neutrality, transferring ICANN to, say, the UN, what will happen is that you now have the potential of regulating any country's input and output of the Internet. And I'm not talking just about Greece and Russia and China. I'm talking about the United States. The reason they want the Fairness Doctrine in the radio, there's one thing I forgot to tell you. In Fairness Doctrine, all the conservative talk show hosts that you listen to now, and some of you do, will be off the air. The only thing they would be able to do is go to Canada or Mexico and broadcast into the United States. In the United States, the top signal can only be 100,000 watts. There are only a couple of those at night. In Canada, they have the same law we do, 100,000 watts. Mexico's another story. They have stations anywhere from 150,000 watts to 500,000 watts. From what I understand, at 200,000 watts, you see blue aura around the towers with the ozone and so forth. Back in the 50s and 60s, there was a DJ by the name of Wolfman Jack. He broadcast out of Mexico on a 200,000 watt station. You could hear him anywhere. So what they would have to do, the conservatives have to do, would go to Mexico and work a deal down there, or go to Canada and set up 100,000 watt, 200,000 watt, 300,000 watt stations. A couple 200,000 in Mexico would cover most of the country. Is this going to happen? I'd say it is. Within 5 to 10 years, the Internet that you know today will not be here, and the radio that you know today will not be here. You'll be hearing music 24/7 if anybody even turns it on, because there's only so many stations can get so many ears for the same music. And on the Internet, as I said, it's all about control. If they control the Internet, they control the radio, they control everything. And here is the irony of the whole deal. The people who are pushing this, mostly on the left, okay, will also be included. There's no way they're going to let anybody say anything, especially if we change governments. The best way to control anything is to control the press, which is non-existent anymore, and the media, which are lapdogs for the most administrations that are on the left. So basically, folks, I'm telling you, I'm warning you that the First Amendment, they're trying to throw it out the window. And we have to stay on guard and be prepared. There will be links at the bottom for you to check out. If you want to try anything, just Google Fairness Doctrine. We want likes. We'd love you to press the like button here. And please, press the subscription button. This will be very, very helpful to us. As always, be well, and for God's sakes, be prepared.